What is going on YouTube? And welcome back to my channel, JoJo Speaks. Thank y'all so much for joining me for this video. So I'm going to do something new on my channel. I'm going to review Hell's Kitchen. Now this is season 23. The most recent episode was episode 12, and this was the Black Jacket episode. When I tell you I was on pins and needles waiting for the Hell's Kitchen series to come back. It went on break for 1 week, and then went on break for 2 more weeks, and then it came back 2 weeks ago. And so I have really been enjoying this season. This season has been head chefs only, and so therefore all of the scores have been extra high. For instance, during the signature dish challenge, there were no scores lower than a 3. All of the scores were 4 and 5. There was only 1 3, and that person just so happened to be the first person to go home. So there you go. I will have to say that I won't be going over like the entire episode. I just want you guys to understand where I'm coming from and understand my viewpoints on the season thus far. Um, and and not in a general sense, as in talking about everyone. I really want to focus on the chefs that I do like, and that's mainly going to be Egypt and Whitney. Now, I will say though that the other chefs that are still there, we have Brandon, who is an awesome chef. He does very well. I can't say that he necessarily stands out, and I would say the same for Kyle. Although I love Kyle's personality, I love what he brings to the show. It's not too often that we see LGBTQ plus representation on the men's side when it comes to Hell's Kitchen, although we have seen it here and there. We don't see it in the way that we've seen Kyle, and I think Kyle's a great representation of our community on the show. We also have Hannah, who is still there. I when I say that I don't see it for Hannah, it's no shade to her whatsoever, and it's no disrespect to her whatsoever. It's just that when I'm watching the show, I don't find myself rooting for her. That's not to say that she's a bad chef. That she's just not my favorite. She's just not my cup of tea necessarily, and she doesn't stand out to me when it comes to the challenges. The main reason why I want to talk the majority about Egypt and Whitney is because I feel like they are the two best chefs that are left. I do believe that they are the most consistent when it comes to challenge wins, or not challenge wins, but challenge performances. I believe Egypt has broken the tie on 2 separate challenges, in particular, to be able to win it for the men's team. Whitney has gotten a point on every single challenge that she's participated in, that one of her dishes has been entered in. And then there was one time where her dish was not picked, and the judges tasted it and said that it would have won a point. And so I love Whitney and I love Egypt. Egypt would have to be my favorite chef on this show. I feel like he has a great connection to food, in my opinion, and I feel like he has passion for food. The same with Whitney, and again, this is not to say that the other chefs don't have passion. I'm just saying what I see. Although Egypt didn't start out in the best way, he was a little bit overbearing. He was a little bit cocky initially. He wanted to seem like a leader. He wanted to present himself as a leader to the team, and the team really wasn't feeling it. And that's one funny thing that I find interesting in this season, is that a lot of times Gordon Ramsay will say that he's looking for a leader, and when someone shows those attributes or those tendencies, then it's then hated on because those people aren't showing those same attributes or tendencies. But it is what it is. But and Egypt had a bad repertoire or I'm sorry, not repertoire, but he had a bad rapport with the other chefs initially. He was put up for elimination, I think, twice in a row. And even in, I think it was 6 or 7 episodes ago, right before dinner service started, Egypt raised his hand and told Gordon Ramsay that he was going to leave the competition. He was missing his children a lot, and he felt like he did not fit into the blue team, and felt like they did not want him there, which I completely understand. And my favorite part of Hell's Kitchen is always when Gordon Ramsay pulls aside at least one of my favorite chefs and gives them a little pep talk. My favorite pep talk of all time on Hell's Kitchen was in season 14, when Gordon Ramsay was trying to encourage Millie. Millie is for a fact my favorite chef on Hell's Kitchen of all time. I've never seen anyone so passionate about food, or as passionate about food as I've seen Millie. And Millie just has this connection with it, and as he would say, he can burn. He can burn, and he shows and proves. Although He's not necessarily the best cook, and I believe that's why he's never won Hell's Kitchen. He's gotten a black jacket in both season 14 and season 17 when he came back for All Stars, but he just never made it to the end or to the finale, and I always was a little bit miffed by that. But I think Gordon Ramsay understands people's abilities and understands their levels. And he knows that Millie is at a certain level, and maybe he's not at the top tier level, maybe per se. And again, that's no shade or no disrespect to Millie. But you know, Gordon Ramsay is a great discerner of a good cook, and that's why I love watching this show. But when Gordon Ramsay took Egypt aside a couple of episodes ago and said, "I understand why you're feeling down. You have every right to feel down. Your team seems not to want you here." But he asked him a question. He says, "Do you know why I haven't sent you home, even though you've been up for elimination a couple of times? It's because you deserve to be here." And I've watched that clip. It's actually on YouTube. I watched that clip multiple times because Egypt got so emotional because you can tell that he wants to be there and you can tell that he cares so much. And it's so tragic that he was going to allow other people's opinions and perceptions of him to have him to quit. And I'm so happy, so happy that Gordon Ramsay did not allow that. And Gordon Ramsay, you know, he didn't allow Egypt to quit when he wanted to, because I'm sure Egypt wanted to leave as soon as he announced to Gordon that he wanted to quit the competition. But Gordon Ramsay said, no, we're going to have a little bit of a chat. And Gordon was able to talk him into coming back into the competition. And I can't say that. I mean, I'll go ahead and say I do think Egypt is the best cook that's left. I found it very interesting in this most recent episode, in this Black Jacket episode. They had 3 rounds to see which of the remaining 6 chefs would get one of the remaining 5 Black Jackets. And so in the first round, Hannah and Brandon, they won. They won that round. They were the first 2 to receive a Black Jacket. And then in the second round, it was Whitney and Kyle that were able to get a Black Jacket. And then we were left with Amanda and Egypt. So I was very surprised at the fact that Egypt had to go through 3 rounds in order to get his Black Jacket. But I was so happy when he was able to get the Black Jacket. And I have just the slightest of feelings that his showing in the Black Jacket round of the competition is foreshadowing that he might not make it to the finale. And I would be extremely disappointed if Egypt does not make it to the grand finale. I do think that he's the most deserving of the win. I really actually just want Egypt to win the whole thing. That's really what I'm saying in general. But you know, it'll be interesting to see how things go. I saw in the preview for the next episode that they'll be teaching some comedians on how to cook, and apparently the comedians cooking will be judged by Gordon Ramsay, and the chefs will be judged at how they're able to teach the comedians how they're able to put a dish together. And so it didn't seem like Egypt had the best of partners. It seemed like everyone else was having a good time, but Egypt seemed so frustrated. So I'm really nervous about watching the next episode of Hell's Kitchen, but we'll see where it goes from here. I also want to touch on Whitney really quickly. I do think Whitney is a very strong chef. In my mind, the perfect final 2 in my mind would be Egypt and Whitney. It would be great to see the 2 of them battle it out. However, I have a funny feeling it's going to end up being Brandon and Hannah. I have a really funny feeling it's going to end up being Brandon and Hannah, and I really hope that it won't be the case. But Whitney has done great in this competition. I think she has a great personality. I think she has a pretty good attitude for the most part. I will say though, in the second round of the Black Jacket competition, that she was feeling pretty down. Gordon kind of asked her, you know, how are you doing? You know, are you doing all right? Because she had her head down. It looked like she was about to cry. It looked like she wasn't. Excuse me, it didn't look like she was faring well during the cook. And when Gordon asked her how she was doing and she didn't answer, I was really surprised that Gordon didn't demand that she give him an answer. But I think Gordon kind of understands how Whitney's attitude works. And what I would compare that to is when Joy, in her season, I can't remember exactly what season she was on. I think it might have been 12 or 13. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But when Joy was, she had a Black Jacket. I think she was in the final 5 or the final 6, and she was just cooking very badly. And she got so frustrated, and you know, she was kind of copping the attitude with Gordon, and Gordon was in the thick of it. And Gordon, it was during dinner service, and you know, and Joy ended up walking off the set, and and by that way, and essentially she was quitting the show. And that was so disappointing because I feel like Joy really could have won that season because I thought she was such an excellent cook. So I'm assuming that maybe Gordon did not want the same thing to happen with Whitney in that moment, but Whitney was able to pull it together, and she was actually able to win that round to get her black jacket. I was a little bit disappointed that when Egypt walked through the door, Whitney was so excited to see Amanda, and then when she saw Egypt, she seemed to be really down. When in previous episodes of this season, it seemed like Whitney and Egypt had a great rapport. It seemed like they were able to talk to one another. It seemed like they were able to relate with one another. When one was feeling down after a challenge, the other would pick the one that was down up. And so maybe she's not as close to Egypt as they're making it seem like she is. But it is what it is. But I am rooting for Whitney. I am rooting for Egypt. I hope both of them make it to the final two. Again, I'll be very disappointed if neither one of them make it to the final two. I hope at least one of them does. But Egypt is my pick for the winner. That's who I want to win. That's not who I necessarily expect to win, because again, I feel as though this most recent episode is kind of foreshadowing the fact that Egypt may not be up to par with the others, which is so interesting to me because Egypt almost always scores during the challenges. Now, there have been times that he hasn't scored during a challenge, but to me, the fact that two of his dishes has won the blue team a challenge during the challenges, to me, I would think that the chefs would look at that as a sign of a great chef, but it is what it is. And now I will say, though, that during the last round between Amanda and Egypt, the chefs that were in the Black Jacket Lounge, they were saying that Egypt was a better chef than Amanda. And they said that, Egypt was bigger competition than Amanda was. And so at least they noticed that about him. But I just don't think that they really respect his prowess when it comes to cooking. And that, again, I don't know why they don't see it for him. Maybe it's just personality. Because he doesn't seem to really get along with anyone really in Hell's Kitchen right now, which is sad to me. But I guess they just first impressions are always the most important impressions. And the first impression that Egypt gave to everyone was an egotistical jerk. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Even though I didn't see it that way necessarily, I saw it as someone who was trying to stand out as a leader. But I guess they really don't respect that. But once again, much respect to Hannah, much respect to Brandon, much respect to Kyle. Once again, I love seeing Kyle just be his natural self on television and not shying away from who he truly is. And I love his banter with everyone. Everyone knows that he's the center of attention when it comes to those chefs living in the dorms. And so yeah, it is what it is. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Hell's Kitchen season 23, and this was sort of kind of episode 12. Let me know who are your favorite chefs on the season thus far, and who were your picks for the final two or the winner. Let me know down there in the comments. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, like the video, make sure you press the notification bell, and share JoJo Speaks with all your family, friends, and loved ones. Let everybody out here know that JoJo Speaks is out here in these YouTube streets. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.